Hello, and welcome to my digital presentation on my research project paper, Easy A Acts as Equipment for Living for Female Victims of Bullying. This is for my communication fluency class at Queen's University of Charlotte. Easy A is a film from 2010 directed by Will Gugg. It's about a young high school student named Olive Pendergast. The film doesn't really dive into whether or not she's a junior or senior or sophomore, but she's a straight A student. She lies about having sex, and that just turns into the rumor mill, uh, basically labeling her as a slut, and her social life gets turned upside down. The literature review on equipment for living, and before we get in deeper, Kenneth Burke says literature acts as equipment for living, using phenomenon in stories to apply to everyday life. And scholars like Stephen Young, Seifert, Prince, and Farrell, they all agree that that film acts as equipment for living because film itself is literature. You look at film and you get told all these stories, and not only are you getting a story, you get all these visuals and symbols, and you can use those to apply to your everyday life. But all these scholars in their works say that well, they work on positive messages communicated. And if film is such an equipment for living as these scholars say it is, the negative messages have to be communicated as well, because we're talking about communication theory here. It's a two-way street. If you're going to get the positive, you're going to get the negative. And that is what Easy A does. Despite that it's a team comedy or dramedy, as some people might argue, and it has this storybook ending. Everyone ends happy, everyone goes home happy. But the thing is, it touches on all of these sensitive themes and messages that I want to dive into that I think are being communicated to young minds that watch this film. And the themes presented in Easy A are bullying in the form of slut shaming mostly, truth telling, which is creating the communication discourse through lying, and parent-child relationships, which those two combine into Olive's relationship with her parents by the time they find out what's going on at her school. And here's how we're going to get to the bottom of all of this. We're going to take three sample groups. Uh, the first would be the most central, which is high female high school juniors and seniors, because they're the ones going through puberty, and they're the ones that would more than likely be sexually active or be more than willing to explore the sexuality. The second group would be the parents of these high school students, and the third group would be these students' high school counselors. The student group will answer questions based on whether or not they've been bullied or whether or not they've been sexually active or they plan to be before they graduate high school. Uh, Parents will have to consent on their behalf because they're minors and this is sensitive information we're asking them to be honest about. So parents will have to consent for them. Uh, they will fill surveys before and after watching the film. Uh, there will be a margin of error because we're talking about kids here, and I know as a teen I used to lie a lot when asked about this kind of sensitive information. So, for the sake of the study, we're gonna have them either do it without parents involved. Parents won't be anywhere near. They can do it with their friends or other participants, or just alone in their own private space. The parent group will be asked about their relationship with their children, whether or not they know if their child is being sexually active, and how they know if their child is sexually active or not, and whether or not their child has been a subject of bullying. And if they have been, we're going to ask them uh, how they, as the parent, handled the situation, or if was their presence needed in school? Did they have to talk to teachers or the principals or anyone in particular? And guidance counselors are kind of like the parents, but the they stand in as the professional of the study, we're going to ask if students come to them over their parents because as a guidance counselor, they're supposed to be the know-all in helping students usher in adulthood, so to speak. So they're only going to be required to fill the survey after the film, and we're going to ask you whether or not students can find within them and if they about sensitive information like sexuality or bullying, and if they have, what is their protocol to handling this sort of sensitive information. And the data we're expecting to get out of this study is for students to apply negative themes in the film to their everyday lives and conflicts, for parents to apply symbols to the interpersonal communication with their children, and for counselors to apply the symbols to their profession as a guidance counselor. And it is expected for the parents and for everyone in general to better detect lying. And in conclusion, the research will more or less speak for itself. Parents will know if their child needs to talk to them about sensitive and personal information. Uh, Students will get negative themes from a happy-go-lucky comedy that has a storybook ending. Counselors will be able to determine whether or not they need to speak more to students about the talk, about being sexually active, and whether or not bullying is a problem in their schools. And the symbol that is most likely to get everyone's attention is the red A that Olive wears throughout most of the film, a quarter way into the movie. This is a callback to The Scarlet Letter, and it's a classic. Everyone studied it in high school English. Everyone knows about it, or at least have has heard about it. If you haven't read it, you at least know of its existence because it's so popular and it's such a go-to for English teachers. So it's a symbol that's not only relative to everyday life, but it's a real piece of literature that has already been studied before as equipment for living. So this is kind of like a double dip. And this is it, that it's sure to get everyone's attention to be able to be able to apply to their everyday conflicts. And that's it. This movie should be researched further, and that is my case. Thank you.